And one time when I was bouncing, some guy just, I can't remember what the circumstance, but he jumped me and I wasn't ready for him. I didn't even know he was coming. Saw him out of the corner of my eye. And I swung around and he's coming in with a strike, and I did exactly that. This thing that I told everyone, well, that's stupid, you know, don't even bother learning that, it came out. My coming into contact with Chun and more in the later years, what I realised was it's best not to go hard because people just do what they always do. So people think if you train hard and really realistically, then it's better. You know, the harder you train, the better you are. But what happens is you just reinforce a lot of bad habits, and people get good at using bad habits. And people, I think, take sparring too seriously. They think sparring is a good test of if you can fight, and I think it actually develops bad habits. When you're sparring, it's agreed that you're not going to hurt each other, and you, because you're throwing hits to the head and things like that, everything's pulled and controlled. And generally it's the guy who's got the least patience who gets on top of things, you know, or the least consideration to the other person, or the most bruised ego. All that stuff gets into play. But what I found really useful, and what I learned from the first time in Hong Kong, was they would chi sao, and it'd be really relaxed everything, but they'd speed up, but you know, sort of cooperating with each other, so it's like you surf with each other. And then they'd start throwing out hits, and you're in the mode then, and you're either catching them or not, and they just hit to the chest, but you could hit hard enough that you would, if I show you. So instead of, when people are sparring, someone's like, I got you in it, but there's nothing in it. But when you're doing chi sao, you can hit, and because you've got that little bit of bang there, it means the person can't then hit you afterwards. Whereas when you spar, you might touch like that, and the other guy will ignore it and belt you, you know, and then it turns into a fight, or it just gets messy, you know. I think it's all through the chi sao. I think that's the wonderful thing about Wing Chun, is that the chi sao will give you the fighting reflexes. And it's not just, people think, okay, when your arms come in contact, it's not just that, it's also before the arms come in, because as you move in and out, when someone throws a punch at me, it almost feels as if we're already connected, because I'm so hardwired to having done all this stuff. And you learn to do things, even though the traps are really helpful because they give you this fluidity and everything, the trapping and controlling. But what you really learn to do with doing lots of look sao correctly and mixing up with the chi sao is that when someone shapes up, you hold there, instead of, if I'm hitting the wrong way, I'm trying to bash through there, and there's no way I can do that. But if I'm hitting the right way, it's like I've thrown this stick at you, that's my forearm, and it can find its way through really easy as long as that's relaxed. If I do this, there's tension, that's me using strength to hit, and it can be stopped by someone, and most people are stronger than me, you know, I'm not a very big guy. But if I throw that at you, you can't stop it, it's got to go one way or the other. So if people are sort of sceptical about that sort of stuff, you know, if they've done a bit of fighting, I say, okay, well, I'll hit you there, yeah, I'll hit you there, and you know I'm going to hit you there, so you stop me, you know. And instead of it getting stopped like that, you can just hit through and get to the same spot, because it sort of finds its way through like that. So that was my experience when fighting. There wasn't a lot of, I only trapped people a couple of times. It's almost unfortunate, because it would have been nice to do the traps and all that stuff, but it doesn't really happen much. But I could hit through guys much stronger than me, and that's what fighting's about, you know. So if they've got a guard, it doesn't matter. You can just punch through it, and while you're punching through it, you're also guarding them hitting you. If I had time to plan something out, because that happens when you're bouncing, sometimes someone will be in your face for hours, and you work out, right, I'm going to belt the guy one way or another, you know, and I'll do this thing. It never worked very well. It never worked very well at all, but times when I got attacked out of the blue and I didn't have time to think about it, it worked quite well. Like there were things that I discounted in all my wisdom. I thought, okay, there's a move in Wing Chun where someone throws a strike, you counter there, you punch through there, and you kick with the hand. And I thought, well, that's ridiculous. That's never going to happen in a million years. And one time when I was bouncing, some guy just, I can't remember what the circumstance, but he jumped me and I wasn't ready for him. I didn't even know he was coming. Saw him out of the corner of my eye. And I swung around and he's coming in with a strike, and I did exactly that. This thing that I told everyone, well, that's stupid, you know, don't even bother learning that, it came out. So the thing is, I never even practiced it. It came out because I moved in a Wing Chun way. My sensibility was to intercept the strike and strike through somehow, you know. Well, there is value in things being in repetition, because if you don't ever do them, they don't come out. But you don't necessarily, as long as you understand the principles, they'll come out regardless if you have a plan about doing it or know what it's for. So another good example is, one time when I was in the pub, a guy went to grab me by the scruff of the neck or strangle me or something like that. His hands reached out towards me like so. And I was caught unawares, so I didn't have any time to plan what I was going to do. He got too close that I reacted without having to think. And another wooden dummy technique came out. This was really surprising. This technique was, in the wooden dummy, there's the one that goes like that, and you do movements like this. And there's another one where you come and strike like that. As the guy went to grab me, I did this move here, and then converted into that strike there, grabbed him by the throat and threw him out. So I'll show it on a person. It's like, as he's reached out like that, I've sort of ended up bang like that, and from there, come through to here, grabbed him, and thrown him out the door. And it wasn't until afterwards I thought, what exactly happened? Because it felt like kung fu. It felt quite good when I did it, but I didn't know what I was doing until afterwards. And I thought, oh, that's from the wooden dummy. And there were a whole lot of things like that that just came out because I'd done them with repetition, but it's not like I had a plan to do it or that I'd practice as when someone grabs you do this. All the things, the only things that tended to work as pre-planned things were if you had entry type techniques. So if someone was coming forward you and they were obviously going to hit you, things like low heel kick and punch are actually really quite effective. I was surprised. I did a lot of kicking when I was bouncing, which I was never comfortable with kicking when I was training, and I didn't really think about them much, but they actually came out because it was, I think because it's appropriate. You know, if there's a gap, your limbs just start to go through the gap if you do enough training. Just quickly about techniques, there'll be something like this will happen where you might do a counter, say a punch like that, and there might be a thing counter like that, and then do this. But what happens is when people practice that all the time, and you stand there and go, okay, bang, do this, and you say, okay, now make it harder so it's more realistic. What happens is that they start to do this. So if you sort of should pull the punch, because I think that that's going to be there, I'm actually doing this. So and I do it all the time. You go to someone and pull it, and they end up there, and that means that it's been totally ineffective. It's going to bounce off anyway, or it may knock the hand out of the way, but you're still open to getting hit. They'll just hit you with the other hand, you know. So I don't think training techniques works like that. It didn't work for me, and so the way I would teach the fighting reflexes is with a chi sao, and I teach the power through the form.